welcome. Today I want to introduce Carly Urban. She is Associate Professor of Economics and Research Fellow at the Institute for the Study of Labor, called the IZA. Carly is also a faculty affiliate at the Center for Financial Security at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. So welcome, Carly. Can you please introduce yourself, focusing on how you got interested in financial education?
Actually, I was staring at two papers, both published in the same year, that were looking at the effects of high school mandates on financial outcomes, so requiring some type of financial education in high school. And they both had this first table saying which states did and didn't have financial education, and they only matched a third of the time. So I think that's kind of where I started to dive into the financial education space.
That's really interesting. And it makes you also realize how much of the data we use is, it's not necessarily incorrect, but it's often incomplete. And we have to think really hard about, what we're putting in our papers, is it's reliable.
I think I learned early on that the devil is in the details when you're looking at any policy. So that was a good early lesson.
Part of being a good student, and in particular being a good academic, is being willing to just do that kind of work. It is not always glamorous. You have to kind of like that to be able to do it well. And it's rewarding because you find out stuff that no one else knows. Why do you think financial education is so important for children and, for that matter, for adults as well?
If we start thinking about kids, I always get kind of the pushback on financial education saying, why can't parents just teach them? There are some parents who really know what they're doing. They're really financially savvy. They have it together. They teach their kids good lessons. And other people are really stressed about money. They're having tough situations, especially in periods like right now where people have additional financial stressors. And it might not be good, actually, to have those really uncomfortable, continuous conversations with your kid. And then thinking more about adults, I think one of the problems is that the people who reach out to you are not usually the people that you want to be getting services from. I think back to when I was in college and credit cards were huge on college campuses. Knowing that you were the easy target that would run up the credit card debt, probably still get a good paying job out of college and eventually pay that back. There's always going to be a new scam out there, and the people targeting you are not necessarily your friend.
Well put. You always hear the story, oh, this nice young man called me on the phone. This is usually an older person, and he wants to help me with my investments. And it's I'm sure he's a nice young man, but how he wants to help you might be different than how you actually need to be helped. So your research shows the potential for financial education to really benefit students. And so I'd love to hear you talk about that, maybe give some examples of how it's helping people, especially kind of leveling the playing field between, the differences in income equality that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the big distinctions from my work with some different colleagues and previous work is that we really look at graduation requirements, and then we look at causal effects, and we can show that credit scores go up, delinquencies go down, so people are less likely to default or be behind on any account. In follow-up work, we actually show that student loan borrowing becomes more responsible. So students shift from high cost to low cost borrowing. And that's where the results are really profound for lower income families, are more likely to get grants and scholarships. They borrow more subsidized Stafford loans, and they use less credit card debt to finance their college. There's actually a follow-up paper by Daniel Mangrum from Vanderbilt University, and he finds that student loan repayment for low income students actually go up. So students are more likely to repay their student loans as well. So there's no kind of long-term consequences.
That's really great. Do they take out less money, or do you see any differences in sort of college choice? I'm just curious. I don't even think it goes either way, but.
Nothing. Yeah. We were shocked. So there's no difference in whether or not you go to college, a 2-year versus 4-year, a more expensive school, in-state versus out of state. There's literally no difference on the college going margin, which kind of surprised me as well. Yeah. But I think it's because it's senior year that you usually take the class and it's too late.
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. But in a way that's sort of encouraging in the sense that you don't have strange confounding effects. I mean, it might be interesting if someone chose a lower cost school, but then school quality is hard to measure. So I think that would make it more difficult to study, where this is sort of, given they're going to college, given they're kind of have a choice set that they're qualified to go to based on grades and other parental income or whatever, then I think that's a really neat result. And it's encouraging because, we obviously know we're big fans of education, you and me, and all my students too. But I think that it's nice to see that in making these educational choices, you have students who are better informed, and that's really, really encouraging. So
Yeah.
I like to hear that. So and I know that you've also been involved in some programs and some different types of initiatives for financial literacy. Can you talk about some of those? I think it's always really nice to hear how our academic work can translate.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, I've spent a lot of time talking to states on how to actually implement these K through 12 financial education high school requirements and what that looks like. And luckily, there's been a lot of work from nonprofits that have really stepped in, trained teachers, developed new really cool, fun apps for like learning about payday lending. I did do one workplace financial education program where we did kind of a little field experiment in Wisconsin, and it was for bank tellers. And they were able to take online financial education at their own pace, and the workplace paid for them to do it.
Yeah.
And after they took it, their retirement savings increased by about $30 a month.
Yeah.
But it kind of like leans into this online education world that we are all in right now, right?
Sure.
And I think in the financial space, particularly when we're thinking about adults and education, they don't want to talk about their problems to everyone,
Mhm.
which is maybe why like financial coaching and counseling, all these like one-on-one,
Yeah.
almost like therapy type of sessions have been kind of effective.
Mhm.
I think like it's so personal that people just don't want to engage with friends or even some family members
Yeah.
on what's going on in their financial situation. So
Yeah.
I actually think the online environment has been pretty cool to allow people to really pick the topics that they're interested in and focus on what makes sense for them. It's trickier to kind of reach people where they are and give them the right information.
Yeah.
So making a variety available to people and incentivizing them to do it at work is definitely one potential
I
option.
really, I didn't mean to interrupt. I really,
No.
really like that. There is a law professor named Lauren Willis who wrote about education a while back, and hers was one of the first papers I read. And she was not optimistic about sort of financial education literacy, and her reason was exactly what you said. Was that, I mean, how often do you have to, make your 401k choices? You change jobs a few times, maybe that's 3 or 4 times. How often do you buy a house? How often do you get student loans? And so these one-off decisions are really difficult. And if you can have some of these kind of interventions for adults, I think working with students when they're young in good programs that are well established and have really strong curriculum, I think that gets you off to a great start. I think for people that exist in the world now who didn't have that, these kinds of programs are really encouraging. And it doesn't surprise me at all that they work because it's so specific and so tailored for them. So I agree with you that the delivery methods that we have now are so much different. And I think for nonprofits to focus that way is just really encouraging for kind of the things that we care about. So
I think the hardest part of this going forward is thinking about the adults who we can't reach in a workplace setting, who are
mhm.
from lower income backgrounds, who are running into lots of different financial troubles, and
Yeah,
how do we even reach them, right? The selection into financial education is really weird. So it's either the people who are so far gone that they really just need like some type of stimulus or some type of they need
right.
resources,
Yeah.
right? Or it's the people that are just doing so well and want to be reinforced. We never get the like in between, the marginal person who that's really going to help. So I think outreach going forward needs to hit the right groups, and there needs to be a lot more effort to figure out who they are.
Yeah, I mean, you think about the very extreme cases, there's a huge population that just call them the unbanked, right? People who
Mhm.
don't have bank accounts, partly because they either fear banks or their income is too low to really, for them to, they don't feel like it's worth starting one. And so I love the idea of literacy across the spectrum. I'm way less concerned about the rich guy who's like, oh, should I choose growth or value in my account? I mean, that's a great problem to have, right? But for those who are sort of thinking like, where do I put my money? Where is money safe? The idea of payday lending and avoiding, very obvious predatory programs is just, it's really cool to think about. And I think as an economist and as a faculty member, I mean, you get to work on that, which is like, which is just really kind of exciting to see the real world impact that your kind of empirical, careful data work has the potential to reach. And I know you've received several grants to kind of build that out. And so that's congrats on that. But also it's just great to see from someone who is we educate thousands of students as professors, but there are, millions more that we hope we could reach through some of these programs. So
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
yeah, so I so appreciate you coming in to talk to me, and thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.